My grandpa was a world champion boxer, she said. The dojo laughed. The coach scoffed. But the room went dead silent when the door opened and Sylvester Stallone walked in. What happened next turned a martial arts dojo into a battleground of legacy and pride. Welcome to Stallone Unleashed. Let's uncover what really happened. The afternoon sun filtered through the large windows of the karate dojo, casting long shadows across the polished wooden floor. The familiar sounds of shuffling feet and focused breaths filled the room as students moved through their drills with practiced precision. Suddenly, the doors creaked open, and all eyes subtly shifted toward the entrance. A girl stepped inside, clutching a worn backpack, her face a mixture of nervous excitement and quiet determination. She was around 16, with dark hair tied back in a neat ponytail, wearing simple athletic clothes that looked a little out of place among the others in their crisp karate uniforms. The coach, a tall man with a sharp gaze and years of experience etched into the lines of his face, paused mid-instruction. He studied the newcomer with a flicker of curiosity, then gestured toward the mats. Without hesitation, the girl stepped forward, bowing respectfully before settling at the edge of the group. The other students exchanged glances, some whispering under their breath, others simply watching with guarded interest. The coach resumed his commands, but his eyes kept drifting back to the girl. She listened intently, her posture straight, absorbing every movement and word. As the session progressed, it became clear she was no stranger to discipline, though her movements were tentative, lacking the polished grace of the regular students. Still, there was a spark in her eyes, a quiet fire that suggested she belonged there just as much as anyone else. Between sets, a few students approached cautiously, offering tentative smiles and nods. The girl returned them, her lips curving into a small, hopeful smile. She didn't speak much, but when asked about her background, she only said, "I'm here to learn." As the class wound down, the coach called everyone together for a final bow. He then fixed his gaze on the new girl and said, "We'll see what you've got." The words hung in the air like a challenge. The girl nodded firmly, ready to prove herself, unaware that her presence was about to stir more than just the usual training routine. During the break, the dojo's atmosphere buzzed with casual chatter and stretching limbs. The new girl sat quietly against the wall, wiping sweat from her brow, when a group of students gathered nearby, their curiosity getting the better of them. One of the more outspoken girls, with arms crossed and a smirk, leaned over and asked, "So, what's your story? You didn't say much earlier." The newcomer straightened, her eyes bright with pride. "My grandpa was a world boxing champion," she said firmly, her voice steady but carrying the weight of that legacy. The room fell into a sudden hush. A few students exchanged surprised glances, some skeptical, others intrigued. One of the boys snorted quietly, unable to hide his disbelief. "Yeah, right. Boxing? Here? You sure you're not just making that up?" The girl's confident smile didn't waver. "Ask my coach. He has the trophies. Grandpa still trains fighters back home." The bold claim rippled through the room. Some whispered excitedly, picturing the girl's grandfather as a legendary figure, while others rolled their eyes, dismissing it as an attempt to impress. The karate coach, standing nearby with his arms folded, finally spoke, his tone dry and laced with skepticism. "Boxing champion or not, this is a karate dojo. What matters here is what you can do, not who your grandfather is." The girl met his gaze without hesitation. "I know that, but I'm proud of my heritage. It's part of who I am, and it's why I want to learn from you all." Her words were calm, yet they carried a quiet strength that made some of the students shift uncomfortably. The coach raised an eyebrow, but said nothing more, signaling the end of the break. As the class resumed, the tension lingered, part challenge, part curiosity, around the girl who had stepped into the dojo with a legacy far bigger than most expected. The moment the girl finished speaking about her grandfather, the coach let out a low, skeptical laugh that echoed through the quiet dojo. It wasn't just amusement, it was disbelief mixed with a hint of condescension. He shook his head slowly, his eyes narrowing as he fixed her with a sharp gaze. "A world boxing champion? Huh," he said, voice dripping with sarcasm. Sounds like quite the fairy tale. The students around him stiffened, some exchanging uneasy glances, unsure whether to laugh along or defend the newcomer. The girl's jaw tightened, but she said nothing, standing firm in the face of his doubt. The coach took a slow step forward, hands on his hips. Look, I've been teaching karate for over 20 years. I've seen plenty of fighters, boxers, kickboxers, mixed martial artists, come through these doors claiming all sorts of pedigrees. But here, talent and discipline speak louder than family stories. If you want respect, you earn it with your own fists, not your grandfather's reputation. He paused, letting the words sink in before continuing. This isn't a place for legends from the past. It's about what you could do right here, right now. The room was silent, except for the faint sound of feet shifting on the mats. The coach's tone was firm, leaving no room for argument. Despite the weight of his words, the girl's expression didn't falter. She met his gaze steadily, her eyes calm but resolute. The air between them crackled with unspoken challenge. Some of the students began to murmur, some impressed by her courage, others unsure if she could back up her claims. The coach sighed, shaking his head again with a faint smirk. All right then, let's see what you're really made of. Without waiting for a response, he turned back to the group, signaling the class to prepare for the next drill. The challenge had been laid down, and the girl knew the real test was just beginning. As the coach's skeptical words faded into the background, the dojo filled with a low hum of whispers and exchanged glances. Groups of students leaned toward each other, their voices hushed but lively with speculation. Some shook their heads, skeptical of the girl's claim, while others looked on with curiosity, wondering if she really had the skill to match her bold words. Near the water cooler, two boys whispered back and forth. Think she's for real? I mean, a world boxing champ's granddaughter showing up in a karate dojo. It's kind of weird, one said, smirking. The other shrugged, eyes narrowing. Could be a joke. Or maybe she just wants attention. Still, I want to see what she can do. Across the room, a small circle of girls chatted quietly, their expressions a mix of admiration and doubt. She's got guts, I'll give her that, one said softly. But you don't just walk into a place like this and expect to impress everyone. Another nodded, adding, yeah, but if her grandpa really was a champ, maybe she's got some serious talent hidden under all that. The girl sat near the edge of the mat, catching fragments of the conversations without reacting. Her posture remained straight, but inside, the buzzing energy of doubt and curiosity stoked a quiet determination. She knew the murmurs were inevitable, the price of standing out in a tight-knit group like this. One of the older students, a quiet kid known for his sharp eyes and calm demeanor, gave her a small nod from across the room. It was a subtle gesture, but it felt like a small sign of respect, the first acknowledgement she had received since arriving. As the coach called the group back to focus, the whispers gradually died down, replaced by the sound of practiced movements and steady breathing. Still, the undercurrent of conversation lingered, a reminder that her arrival had stirred something in the dojo, a mix of challenge and possibility that would shape what came next. The room buzzed with activity as students resumed their drills, but the girl's focus remained unshaken. Her eyes fixed on the coach, absorbing every instruction, every demonstration with a steady intensity that set her apart. Despite the lingering skepticism around her, she moved with quiet determination, each step and motion measured but full of intent. Her hands trembled slightly as she prepared for the first set of exercises, a hint of nerves hidden beneath the calm exterior. Yet, as she went through the motions, her movements grew stronger, more confident. She didn't rush or force her actions. Instead, she let her body respond naturally, drawing on a deep well of discipline she had cultivated long before entering the dojo. Around her, the students continued their routines, some sneaking glances her way, noting the steady progress she made. Even the coach's sharp gaze softened ever so slightly as he observed her focused effort. He saw in her a spark that wasn't easily extinguished, a will to prove herself beyond words or family stories. When it came time for partner drills, a more experienced student was assigned to spar with her. The girl met his challenge head-on, defensive but alert, carefully reading his moves. She absorbed each strike, countering with precision that surprised even her partner. There was no flashy showmanship, just a calm, steady presence that spoke louder than any boast. After the drill, the coach nodded approvingly. "You've got potential," he said quietly, almost grudgingly. The words were brief but carried weight, a small victory in a sea of doubt. The girl allowed herself a faint smile, but kept her focus. She knew this was only the beginning. Her grandfather's legacy was not a shield. It was a challenge she had to meet with her own hands and heart. In that dojo, beneath the fluorescent lights and watchful eyes, she made a silent promise to earn respect not through stories, but through quiet strength and relentless effort. The coach called the students to form a circle in the center of the dojo, the polished floor reflecting their determined faces. Today's session was about endurance and technique, two things the girl knew would test her limits. She stood among the others, muscles tense, ready to prove herself beyond words. The warm-up drills began, a series of kicks, punches, and footwork exercises repeated with relentless precision. The girl moved deliberately, her breaths steady despite the burning in her legs. Sweat beaded along her forehead, but she didn't falter. Every strike she threw carried more force than the last, her body adjusting to the rhythm of the class. When it came time for sparring practice, pairs were quickly assigned. The girl's partner was a senior student, known for his speed and sharp reflexes. As they faced off, the atmosphere thickened with anticipation. She remembered the coach's skeptical laugh from earlier, fueling a fire deep within her. The match started cautiously. Her partner launched quick jabs, testing her defenses. She blocked, sidestepped, and countered with precise punches, surprising him with her control and power. Each successful move bolstered her confidence. She felt the strength passed down from her grandfather in every punch. The coach watched closely, his expression unreadable as the girl held her ground, refusing to back down. Where a partner attempted a spinning kick, she ducked low and delivered a swift counterstrike to his ribs. The impact echoed lightly through the room, drawing a few gasps from onlookers. After several minutes, the coach called the sparring to a halt. He stepped forward, eyes narrowing as he regarded the girl. "Not bad," he said curtly, the smallest hint of approval slipping through his usual stern demeanor. The students who had doubted her began to look at her differently. Whispers turned into nods of respect, and the girl felt the shift in the room's energy. She wasn't just the coach's granddaughter anymore. She was someone who had earned her place with hard work and undeniable strength. The brief moment of respect that had settled over the dojo quickly dissolved as the coach stepped forward, his expression hardening once again. The students straightened, sensing a shift in the atmosphere. The coach's eyes locked onto the girl, sharp and unyielding. "That was a decent effort," he began, voice low but carrying the weight of authority. "But don't mistake that for mastery. Strength alone won't carry you through this. Technique, discipline, and understanding the art, those are what separate a fighter from a brawler." He circled her slowly, scrutinizing her stance and movements. "Your punches are powerful, yes, but sloppy. Your guard drops too often. You leave openings that a skilled opponent would exploit without hesitation. And your footwork, too rigid. You need to be fluid, adaptable like water, not a stone stuck in place." The girl listened intently, absorbing the critique without argument. The sting of his words was sharp, but beneath it was a rare chance to learn, to grow beyond her current limits. Still, the coach's tone remained unforgiving. "You're relying too much on strength you didn't earn here. That's a dangerous path. You risk being overconfident and underprepared." He paused, then added, "If you want to carry your grandfather's legacy, you must respect the process, the training. Otherwise, you're just repeating stories without meaning." Some students exchanged glances, the tension thickening. The girl's jaw clenched, but her eyes stayed steady, refusing to back down. She nodded slowly, accepting the challenge laid before her. The coach turned away, signaling the group to prepare for the next drill. "Now, let's see if you can move with your head, not just your fists." His voice softened only slightly, but the challenge was clear. As the class resumed, the girl felt the weight of his expectations settle on her shoulders. It wasn't just about proving her strength anymore. It was about proving she had the discipline and skill to match. The real journey was just beginning. The dojo buzzed with the rhythm of punches and kicks when the front doors suddenly swung open, drawing every eye. A hush fell over the room as a man walked in with an unmistakable presence. Tall, confident, and carrying the aura of someone who had seen countless battles. The students stopped mid-motion, their chatter fading into silence. The coach paused, wiping sweat from his brow, and looked toward the newcomer with a mixture of surprise and respect. The man's face was weathered but strong, his gaze steady as he surveyed the room. He wore a simple leather jacket over a plain shirt and jeans, casual yet commanding. His footsteps echoed softly across the wooden floor as he approached the center of the dojo. Without a word, the man nodded to the coach, who stepped forward and greeted him with a firm handshake. The students whispered among themselves, recognizing the visitor but unsure why he had come. The girl felt her heart quicken. There was something different about this man, something that shifted the energy in the room. The coach turned to the students and announced, "Everyone, this is Sylvester Stallone." A ripple of astonishment swept through the group. The name carried weight, a legend known far beyond the walls of their small dojo. Stallone's eyes briefly met the girl's, a small smile touching his lips. "I heard about a promising new student," he said, voice calm but filled with warmth. "I wanted to see for myself." The girl stood a little straighter, a mix of nerves and pride swelling inside her. The other students watched as Stallone moved through the room, nodding approvingly at their forms and technique. His presence was both intimidating and inspiring, a living testament to strength and resilience. As the class prepared to continue, the atmosphere had shifted. The unexpected visitor had not only arrived, but had brought with him a new energy, one that hinted a change, challenge, and opportunity for everyone in the dojo. The moment Sylvester Stallone stepped fully into the dojo, a powerful silence settled over the room. The usual sounds of grunts, shuffling feet, and the sharp crack of fists against pads vanished completely. Every student froze mid-motion, eyes wide, breaths held. Even the coach's usual confident demeanor shifted into quiet respect as he stepped back slightly to let the legend take center stage. Stallone's presence filled the space with an unmistakable gravity. His broad shoulders and steady gaze spoke of decades of experience and battles fought both inside and outside the ring. His leather jacket hung loosely from his frame, worn but dignified, while the subtle lines on his face told stories of relentless dedication and hard-won wisdom. He scanned the room slowly, his eyes finally resting on the girl who had stirred so much attention earlier. There was a spark of recognition in his gaze, a hint of approval that seemed to pass silently between them. For a brief moment, it felt as if time itself had paused. This was no ordinary visit. It was a reckoning. Without raising his voice, Stallone spoke clearly, his tone calm but commanding. "I've seen a lot of fighters come and go," he said. "What matters isn't the noise you make or the stories you tell. It's the work you put in every single day." His words hung heavy in the air, both a challenge and an invitation. The coach nodded respectfully, the tension in his shoulders easing. The students, once whispering and uncertain, now watched with renewed focus, eager to absorb whatever wisdom this unexpected visitor might offer. The girl met Stallone's gaze, her heart pounding but steady. In that moment, the silent energy between them spoke volumes. Stallone's entrance had not just silenced the room. It had shifted the very air, setting the stage for something far greater than a simple training session. Stallone's eyes held a rare warmth as he addressed the group, but his focus remained sharply on the girl. "I've heard stories," he began, voice steady and sincere, "about a young fighter carrying a legacy, not just in name, but in spirit. Your grandfather's reputation in the boxing world isn't just a footnote. It's a foundation." The girl straightened, surprised by the genuine respect in his tone. The room, once thick with skepticism, now felt charged with possibility. Stallone continued, I know what it takes to build that kind of legacy. It's not handed down like a trophy. It's earned through grit, sacrifice, and relentless work. He took a slow step closer, his presence commanding but encouraging. Heritage like that shapes you, but it doesn't define you. What you do with it, that's what counts. Stallone's gaze locked with hers, unflinching. It takes heart to walk into a new arena, challenge yourself, and honor where you come from without hiding behind it. The coach, usually the voice of discipline and critique, listened quietly, his eyes reflecting a grudging acknowledgement. The other students exchanged glances, sensing the shift in the room's energy. Stallone's words carried weight beyond their training, touching on something deeper: identity, pride, and the courage to forge your own path. The girl felt a surge of determination swell within her. For the first time, she didn't feel alone in her struggle to balance legacy and self. Stallone's respect was more than encouragement. It was a validation of the journey she had only just begun. As Stallone stepped back, a calm settled over the dojo. The challenge was no longer just physical. It was personal, tied to honor and growth. The girl knew that with this unexpected ally standing beside her, the path ahead was daunting but filled with new strength. The coach stood silently for a moment after Stallone's words, his usually confident posture slightly stiffened. The unexpected praise for the girl's heritage caught him off guard, leaving a flicker of confusion shadowing his sharp eyes. He wasn't used to having his authority challenged, not so openly, and certainly not by someone with Stallone's legendary reputation. He glanced sideways at the students, some watching the exchange with wide eyes, others still holding their breath. The coach's mind raced, wrestling with the respect Stallone had shown and the doubts he'd carried moments before. The weight of Stallone's words pressed against his usual certainty, forcing him to reconsider his stance. Legacy, the coach muttered under his breath. It's easy to dismiss when you focus only on what's in front of you. His voice was low but carried enough strength for those nearby to hear. Maybe I've been too quick to judge. For a brief second, he looked directly at the girl, who met his gaze steadily, no longer just a newcomer, but someone proving her worth in real time. The coach's expression softened, a mix of respect and unresolved questions flickering across his face. The room felt charged with unspoken tension. The coach's usual control now mingled with uncertainty. He shifted his weight, unsure whether to continue his role as the stern teacher or step back and allow the lesson to expand beyond technique. After a long pause, the coach cleared his throat and said, Stallone's right. It's not just about strength or stories. It's about what you do with both. His voice was quieter than before, but each word carried a new sincerity. The students exhaled collectively, sensing a turning point. The coach's shock and confusion hadn't broken him, but it had opened a door to understanding, growth, and perhaps a deeper respect for the girl and the legacy she carried forward. The dojo grew quieter as Stallone settled onto a bench near the edge of the mat, the students gathering around like eager apprentices. His presence commanded attention without effort, and even the coach stepped closer, curiosity and respect mingling in his expression. Stallone's voice dropped to a conversational tone, rich with the weight of years spent in the ring and on the screen. Boxing, he began, is more than just fists and footwork. It's about heart, resilience, and the stories we carry with us. Legends aren't born overnight. They're forged through pain, sacrifice, and moments that define who they really are. He glanced around the room, making eye contact with several students before focusing on the girl. I knew fighters who lost everything but kept going. One of the greatest, a man named Joe Frazier, was known not just for his power, but for his relentless spirit. He fought through injuries and doubts, never letting the world see him quit. The students listened intently, hanging on every word as Stallone continued. Then there was Roberto Duran, Hands of Stone. He wasn't the biggest or fastest, but his determination was unmatched. He showed that we can outfight raw talent any day. The coach nodded thoughtfully, the stories stirring something deep within the dojo's walls. Stallone's voice softened as he added, These legends didn't just fight their opponents. They fought their own fears, their own limits. That's what makes a true champion. He turned back to the girl, a knowing smile crossing his face. Your grandfather's legacy isn't just a name to live up to. It's a reminder that strength comes from within, facing every challenge with courage, humility, and the willingness to learn. The girl's eyes shone with renewed purpose, inspired by the stories that bridged the past and present. Around her, the students absorbed Stallone's words, feeling the gravity of tradition and the power of personal resolve. In that moment, the dojo wasn't just a place to train, it was a space where history, respect, and determination came alive, guiding every punch and every step forward. The air in the dojo thickened with anticipation as Stallone's stories settled into the minds of the students. Then, with a sly grin, he shifted the mood. He said, voice low and teasing, karate and boxing, two very different worlds. Both demand skill, discipline, and heart. But which is stronger when it comes down to it? The coach raised an eyebrow, crossing his arms. They're different arts. One isn't better than the other. His tone was firm but intrigued. Stallone chuckled softly, stepping closer to the center of the room. Maybe, but there's only one way to find out. He turned to the girl, nodding knowingly. What do you say? You're standing in a karate dojo, carrying a boxing legacy. How about a little friendly competition? Karate versus boxing. Let's see how those worlds collide. Whispers rippled through the students, some excited, others skeptical. The girl's heart pounded, caught between nerves and determination. She looked to the coach, who studied her carefully before nodding once. All right, the coach said, voice steady. We'll do this. Not as a fight, but a test of skill and respect. We'll learn from each other. Stallone smiled broadly. Good, because it's not about winning or losing. It's about understanding what each art brings to the table. The technique, the timing, the mindset. The girl squared her shoulders, ready to step into this unexpected challenge. The students gathered around, their energy shifting from skepticism to anticipation. The dojo, once divided by doubt and curiosity, now brimmed with the thrill of competition and the promise of growth. As Stallone and the coach prepared to oversee the match, the girl felt a surge of pride. This was her chance, not just to honor her grandfather's legacy, but to bridge two worlds, proving that respect and skill could transcend any boundary. After the announcement of the friendly challenge, the girl found a quiet corner of the dojo to catch her breath. The excitement of the moment mingled with a creeping wave of doubt. Was she really ready for this? Could she truly hold her own between two worlds so different yet so intertwined? Her mind replayed Stallone's stories, the weight of her grandfather's legacy, and the coach's earlier harsh critique. The voices of the students, the whispered skepticism, they all echoed in her thoughts. For a moment, uncertainty settled in like a shadow, and she wondered if she was chasing a dream that was bigger than she could handle. But then, deep inside, a quiet voice pushed back. It reminded her of the years of training she'd done alone, the early mornings and late nights filled with sweat and discipline. It reminded her of the promise she'd made, to honor her heritage not with empty words, but with real strength. She stood, shoulders squared, and looked around at the faces watching her. They saw her as a newcomer, as a challenge to be tested. But she saw herself as more than that, someone ready to prove that respect was earned through action, not just story. The doubts didn't disappear entirely, but they no longer held power over her. Instead, they sharpened her focus, fueling a determination that was quiet but fierce. She would face whatever came next, not to silence the skeptics, but to show herself what she was capable of. As the room settled back into motion, the girl took a deep breath and stepped toward the center of the dojo. The challenge wasn't just about the competition, it was about discovering the strength that had always been inside her, waiting to be claimed. The following days blurred into a rhythm of sweat and determination as the girl trained under Stallone's watchful eye. Early mornings began with shadow boxing, her fists cutting through the air with growing precision, mirroring the techniques he demonstrated with fluid, practiced ease. Stallone's voice was calm but firm, offering corrections with a patience born of experience. She learned to shift her weight, to move with a boxer's balance, light on her feet yet grounded, ready to strike or evade. The old gloves he handed her felt heavy at first, unfamiliar compared to her karate training, but gradually they became extensions of her will. Stallone showed her how to tighten her guard, how to read an opponent's subtle tells before they struck. The dojo echoed with the rhythm of fists hitting pads, her breath steadying as endurance built with every round. Stallone taught her to punch not just with strength, but with purpose, every jab and hook aimed with intent and control. He pushed her beyond limits, demanding she tap into the deeper reservoir of resilience that boxing required. Between drills, Stallone shared stories of his own training. Hours spent perfecting footwork, the mental toughness needed to withstand pressure, the humility to learn even when you think you've mastered the craft. His presence was both mentor and motivator, guiding her through the transformation. The girl's body grew stronger, her movements sharper, blending the grace of karate with the raw power of boxing. Sweat soaked her clothes, muscles burned, but her resolve only deepened. She wasn't just learning a new skill, she was reshaping herself, forging a bridge between two worlds. As the sun set on each day, Stallone nodded approvingly, seeing the progress that wasn't just physical but mental. The girl's journey was far from over, but with every punch thrown and lesson absorbed, she stepped closer to becoming the fighter she was meant to be. The coach watched silently from the edge of the dojo, arms crossed, as the girl trained with Stallone. What had started as quiet curiosity had begun to twist into something less comfortable. Each precise jab, each fluid movement she learned, seemed to chip away at the certainty he'd held so firmly. He wasn't used to losing the unquestioned authority in his own dojo, especially not to an outsider, even one as renowned as Stallone. More unsettling was the girl's rapid progress, her confidence growing with every session, blending the hard-hitting discipline of boxing with the focused grace of karate. It challenged the very foundation of his teachings. At times, the coach found himself rubbing his chin thoughtfully, watching her slip between styles with an ease that unsettled him. The old rules he'd lived by suddenly felt incomplete, as if a new paradigm was quietly emerging before his eyes. He wasn't sure if it was excitement or fear that stirred his chest. The students noticed too. Whispers floated around the room about the shifting dynamic. Some sided with the coach's cautious skepticism. Others were drawn to the promise of something new. The coach's usual steady presence showed cracks. Hesitation flickered in his eyes during instruction, his tone occasionally sharper than usual. One evening, after the final bell, the coach lingered near the training mats alone. He replayed the scenes, the girl's steady punches, Stallone's approving nods, the quiet respect forming between them. For the first time, he questioned if the traditions he guarded so fiercely might need to bend to allow growth. But pride and years of experience made that difficult to admit. The coach's unease was not just about technique or style. It was about letting go of control and accepting change. As the dojo lights dimmed, the coach stood silently, caught between the past he knew and the future unfolding before him, uncertain of where he truly belonged in the new story being written. The day of the friendly sparring match arrived with a charged atmosphere in the dojo. Students gathered around the mats, forming a loose circle, eager to witness the blend of karate and boxing styles in action. The girl stood at one end, gloves laced tightly, eyes focused but calm. Across from her, a skilled karate student stepped forward, a mixture of confidence and respect in his stance. The coach and Stallone stood nearby, observing with quiet intensity. The air was thick with anticipation, the usual background noises replaced by the sound of steady breathing and the soft shuffle of feet. The match began cautiously, both fighters circling, testing distance and reaction. The karate student struck first with a swift roundhouse kick, aiming for the girl's ribs. She blocked expertly, countering with a sharp jab that caught him off guard. The exchange was fast, a dance of skill and timing that kept the onlookers silent and absorbed. As the rounds progressed, the girl's boxing training became evident. Her punches came with precision and speed, blending seamlessly with defensive moves learned from karate. The karate student adapted, responding with fluid kicks and strategic angles, pushing the girl to move beyond her comfort zone. The sparring was not about dominance, but discovery. Each fighter respected the other's strengths, learning and adapting as they went. The girl ducked under a spinning kick, countering with a body shot that drew a nod of approval from her opponent. The coach's stern expression softened as he watched the match unfold, recognizing the growth in both students. Stallone smiled faintly, satisfied to see the fusion of styles bringing out the best in a young fighter. When the match ended, both participants bowed deeply, the room erupting into applause. The girl's chest rose and fell with exertion, but a satisfied smile spread across her face. She had not only held her own, but had taken another step in proving herself, not just as a boxer's granddaughter, but as a fighter forging her own path. The girl stood steady on the mat, sweat glistening on her brow, her breath controlled, and even despite the intensity of the sparring match, every muscle in her body was alert, finely tuned from weeks of relentless training. She had entered the dojo as an outsider carrying a legacy. Now, she was a fighter commanding respect with every move. Her opponent, skilled and quick, pressed forward with calculated kicks and strikes, testing her defenses. But the girl met each challenge with calm precision, blocking, dodging, and countering in a rhythm that surprised many watching. Her punches were sharp and deliberate, her footwork fluid, a seamless blend of the boxing lessons from Stallone and the karate discipline instilled by the coach. At one point, a swift kick aimed at her midsection forced her to step back, but she recovered instantly, launching a crisp jab that caught her opponent off guard. The strike wasn't just about power. It was about timing and control, qualities she had honed through long hours of practice. The dojo was silent save for the sounds of movement and breathing, every eye fixed on the girl who had become the center of attention. Even the coach, who had been skeptical from the start, found himself nodding in quiet approval. The respect that had seemed distant was now unmistakable, earned through effort and resilience. Despite the pressure, the girl's expression remained composed, her focus unwavering. She wasn't fighting to prove a point to others anymore. She was fighting to prove something to herself. Each successful block, each effective counterstrike was a step toward owning her place in the dojo and honoring her grandfather's legacy on her own terms. As the sparring ended, the girl lowered her gloves with a satisfied breath. She had held her own, not just in skill, but in spirit. The journey was far from over, but in that moment, she had carved out her own path, strong and unshakable. The coach watched silently as the sparring match concluded, the energy in the room shifting palpably. The girl lowered her gloves, sweat dripping but eyes steady, having demonstrated skill and heart that could no longer be ignored. For the first time in weeks, the coach felt a stirring of genuine respect welling up inside him. He cleared his throat, stepping forward with a measured pace. His usual stern demeanor softened just enough to reveal the weight of his reconsideration. "You've surprised me," he said, voice low but carrying a new sincerity. "Not just with your punches or your footwork, but with your discipline and determination." The students hushed, sensing the significance of the moment. The coach's praise wasn't given lightly. "I've been quick to judge," he admitted, glancing briefly at Stallone, who nodded in quiet approval nearby. "But respect isn't something you demand. It's something you earn. And you've earned mine." He turned fully to the girl, his gaze steady and thoughtful. "This dojo isn't just about karate. It's about growth, learning, and pushing past limits. You've done that, not just for yourself, but for all of us who thought we knew what strength looked like." The room seemed to breathe easier, the tension easing as the coach's words settled. Some students exchanged glances, their skepticism fading in the face of his change of heart. The coach continued, "From now on, I want you to know you have my support. Keep training hard, keep pushing yourself, and remember that strength comes from respect for the art, for your opponents, and for yourself." The girl nodded, a quiet smile breaking through her exhaustion. She had fought not just for skill, but for acknowledgement. And now she had it from the one who mattered most in this place. As the coach stepped back, the dojo filled with a renewed sense of unity. His change of heart wasn't just a victory for her. It was a turning point for everyone willing to embrace growth and challenge. The days that followed carried a fresh energy through the dojo, a renewed spirit that blended tradition with openness. The coach's shift in attitude had rippled outward, changing not just his own perspective but that of the entire group. Where skepticism had once lingered, a newfound respect for both boxing and karate took root. Students who had been doubtful now approached the girl with questions about her training, curious about the boxing techniques she had learned from Stallone. Small groups gathered during breaks, sharing stories and comparing moves, bridging the gap between the two disciplines. The dojo became a place of collaboration rather than competition. Stallone's visits continued, offering guidance that blended seamlessly with the coach's expertise. His presence reminded everyone that strength came in many forms, and mastery was about dedication, not just style. The fusion of boxing's raw power with karate's precision and discipline inspired the students to push beyond their previous limits. The girl found herself embraced not only as a skilled fighter, but as a symbol of unity within the dojo. She taught others what she had learned, demonstrating how footwork and punches could complement kicks and blocks. Her quiet determination became a catalyst for change, encouraging others to explore new techniques with open minds. The coach watched all this with a mixture of pride and humility. The dojo's walls, once lined with strict traditions, now echoed with a richer, more diverse energy. Respect for the past remained, but it was no longer a barrier to growth. Instead, it was the foundation upon which something stronger was built. During training sessions, laughter and encouragement mingled with focused discipline. The students moved with purpose, learning not just how to fight, but how to respect different arts and each other. The dojo had transformed into a community, a place where legacy and innovation walked hand in hand. In this new harmony, the girl's journey wasn't just about proving herself. It was about helping the entire dojo embrace a broader vision of strength, unity, and respect. Stallone gathered the students and the coach near the center of the dojo, the soft glow of the overhead lights casting long shadows across the wooden floor. His presence was calm but commanding, and everyone fell silent, eager to hear the wisdom he had to share. Fighting isn't just about throwing punches or landing kicks, Stallone began, voice steady and thoughtful. It's about the mindset you carry into every challenge, whether it's in the ring, the dojo, or in life. He looked around the room, making eye contact with many of the students. Discipline, respect, and humility. These aren't just words. They're the foundation that keeps you grounded when everything else feels uncertain. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle before continuing. Your training is about more than technique. It's about learning to face your fears, to push through pain, and to rise when you're knocked down. It's about respect. Respect for your opponents, for your teachers, and most importantly, for yourself. Stallone turned slightly toward the coach and the girl, a subtle smile crossing his face. What I've seen here is a reminder that strength isn't confined to one style or tradition. It's about the heart you bring to your practice, the openness to learn, and the courage to grow. He shifted his gaze back to the students. Remember, every champion started somewhere. They weren't born perfect, they earned it. So don't be discouraged by setbacks. Use them. Let them make you better. The coach nodded quietly, absorbing the message, while the girl's eyes gleamed with renewed purpose. Around them, the students sat taller, their spirits lifted by Stallone's words. As he finished, Stallone's voice softened. Train hard, stay humble, and never lose sight of why you started. That's the true path to greatness. The dojo remained silent for a moment longer, the echo of his wisdom filling the space, an enduring lesson that would guide them far beyond the mats. The day of the tournament dawned bright and clear, the air buzzing with excitement and nerves. The girl stepped into the crowded gymnasium, her heart steady despite the roaring crowd. She wore her gear with quiet confidence, every movement reflecting the months of relentless training and the fusion of karate and boxing she had mastered. The matches progressed swiftly, each round testing her strength, speed, and strategy. Opponents came at her with varied styles, some relying on quick karate kicks, others on powerful boxing combinations, but she met each challenge with composure and precision. Her punches snapped with controlled power, her footwork fluid and adaptive, a seamless blend of both worlds. Between rounds, the coach and Stallone watched from the sidelines, their expressions a mix of pride and anticipation. The girl's journey, once filled with doubt and skepticism, was now unfolding into something extraordinary. Each victory was not just a step closer to the trophy, but a testament to her dedication and growth. In the final match, the atmosphere crackled with intensity. Her opponent was fierce and experienced, matching her blow for blow with impressive skill. The crowd was on edge as the two fighters exchanged strikes, neither giving an inch. Then, recalling a move Stallone had emphasized, the girl executed a perfectly timed counterpunch that caught her opponent off guard. The impact sent a hush through the audience as her opponent staggered. Seizing the moment, the girl pressed forward, combining speed and precision to deliver the winning combination. The referee's call echoed through the gym, "Victory." Cheers erupted, the crowd rising to their feet as the girl stood, chest heaving but radiant. The coach approached first, clapping her on the shoulder with genuine pride. Stallone smiled warmly, nodding in approval. In that moment, she wasn't just the granddaughter of a boxing legend or the new girl in the dojo. She was a champion in her own right, strong, skilled, and deserving of every ounce of respect she had earned. The dojo was quiet that evening, bathed in the soft glow of fading daylight filtering through the windows. The day's excitement had settled into a calm stillness, the energy shifting toward reflection and renewal. The girl sat quietly near the mats, her body tired but her spirit light, the tournament's victory still fresh in her mind. The coach approached slowly, the usual stern expression softened by a newfound warmth. He stopped beside her and offered a small, genuine smile. "You've come a long way," he said quietly. "Not just as a fighter, but as part of this dojo." She looked up, meeting his eyes without hesitation. "Thank you for believing in me, even when I wasn't sure I deserved it." He nodded, his respect clear. "I was wrong to doubt you. Your strength isn't just in your punches or kicks. It's in your heart and your will to grow. That's what makes a true martial artist." The moment felt like a bridge spanning the past and future, healing old doubts and opening doors to new possibilities. The students gathered nearby, their chatter subdued but friendly, reflecting the shift in the dojo's spirit. Stallone appeared in the doorway, his presence a quiet reminder of the journey they had all shared. "This is just the beginning," he said, voice calm but full of promise. "Keep pushing, keep learning. The real fight is never over." The girl stood, feeling a sense of belonging she hadn't expected when she first walked through the doors. The path ahead was still filled with challenges, but she faced it with confidence and an open heart. As the coach, Stallone, and students mingled in the fading light, the dojo felt transformed, a place where legacy met innovation, where respect was earned and given freely, and where every new beginning held the promise of growth. In that quiet evening glow, the girl realized she had found more than a training ground. She had found a family, a home, and a future forged not just by blood, but by courage and choice. The dojo buzzed softly with the sounds of training as the girl stood before a small, framed photograph hung on the wall, a black and white image of her grandfather in his prime, gloves raised, eyes fierce with determination. The photo had been placed there that morning, a symbol of the legacy that had first brought her to this place. She traced the edges lightly with her fingers, feeling the weight of history and the promise of the future intertwined. Around her, the students moved through their drills, their faces showing newfound respect for the lineage she carried. The coach stood nearby, quietly observing with a sense of pride that words couldn't fully express. Stallone, ever the mentor, nodded approvingly from his usual spot by the entrance. The girl took a deep breath, the memories of her journey flooding back, the doubts, the struggles, the victories. Her grandfather's story had been a beacon through it all, but now it was more than a story. It was a living, breathing force carried forward through her own efforts and those of everyone who had embraced her. She stepped onto the mat, feeling the solid wood beneath her feet and the strength of those who had trained before her. The legacy wasn't just about titles or trophies. It was about courage, respect, and the relentless pursuit of growth. With every punch, every kick, every moment of discipline, she honored that heritage. The coach called the students together for a brief moment, and the girl spoke quietly but clearly. My grandfather taught me that strength isn't just about fighting. It's about standing up for what you believe in and carrying those values forward. The room was silent, absorbing the depth of her words. As the class resumed, the girl smiled softly. The legacy lived on, not just in a photograph or a name, but in the heart and spirit of everyone in the dojo. It was a story renewed, a path cleared for new fighters ready to write their own chapters with pride and honor.